is my number 4. But Tyreek Hill is my number 2 here. Finished the season off with 119 receptions, 1,700 yards, and 7 touchdowns. All, I believe, was career highs in yardage for sure, and maybe receptions.
Yardage was, touchdowns was not.
Touchdowns was not, but I think receptions and yardage were. And again, that was multiple games without
7 games.
Tua. 7 games total without Tua.
5 games that Tua missed, and 2 games where he got hurt in early in the game.
But that being said, he was still heavily involved, even with the backup wide receivers or backup quarterbacks. I think the wide receiver that took the biggest hit in those backups for a couple of the games, not all of them, was more Jalen Waddle. Because if you look at it, there were games of 15 targets, 13 targets, 14 targets. It wasn't until the week 3 and the last game of the season he had 5 or less targets in a game, and that's what you want out of your number 1 wide receivers. As many double-digit target games as you can get out of him, the better. And his reception percentage was pretty high in a lot of those games. Only missed 2 or 3 receptions. The big thing for him, he had 7 touchdowns, just like Jefferson had 8. He had a big gap again, 6 games in a row from week 2 to week 9 where he had 0 touchdowns. So same exact pattern as Justin Jefferson. So again, I think there should be an increase in touchdowns with him as usual. I think it's going to be hard to key just on him when you have Jalen Waddle. And you got to say that when you're picking Tyreek Hill or Waddle on your team, is you are thinking 100% Tua is going to be healthy all 17 games of the year. You can't sit there thinking to yourself, well, I got to hinge my bets. I don't like him because it's all based on Tua's health. Well, yeah, that's true. But the goal here is that you're drafting a guy that's going to stay healthy himself as well as his quarterback. You could say that about any player on here. Is like, oh, I want to draft Eckler or I want to draft CMC 1 overall, but I really hope he stays healthy. There's other running backs healthier for 17 more weeks, but they're not going to give you the volume and the value that those guys we're talking about here are. So injuries aside, he has a chance to go up over 1,800 yards and get near the 2,000-yard mark himself too, just because of how his big playability and deep downfield targets.
I mean, even let's look at the 7 games that Tua missed, and Tyreek Hill still posted up over 1,700 yards. You don't think that Tyreek could have gotten 250 more yards or 270 more yards, whatever he needed to get to 2,000
over 7 games? Absolutely.
Over 7 games, and then throw in 2 touchdowns in that.
Yeah.
Like he could have been the number 1 wide receiver without a doubt last year. So I do like him there. I have him as my number 3. But he's the other guy that I think can be the number 1 overall. If I were a betting man, like that's those 3 guys are who I'm putting my bet on. Like, I'm not looking for dark horses to come up and say, these guys are in the offense, they have the talent, and they have the explosive play to have, to be able to be in that top discussion. A lot of these other guys might rely on having a miraculous season, look at like Jamal Williams from the running back position, having 17 touchdowns last year. Like, it's just abnormal, right? It's normal for Tyreek Hill to expect Tyreek Hill to go off for 1,500 yards in a season. It's normal to think that he's going to have 6+ touchdowns in a season, and to think that those numbers could go up with a healthy Tua is something that I would love to have. Like I said, he's kind of in that discussion for me. I do have him one spot down, and we'll talk about the next guy where why I like him more. But with Tyreek, you love this offense, and he's a mismatch nightmare. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, unlike Justin Jefferson and some of these other wide receivers, there's no cornerback that can keep up with him. Yeah. So, like, you can't man-to-man cover him. So, and he's so good at, like, extending the play, coming across the middle. And Mike McDaniels is so creative on getting him the ball in space and allowing him speed to be fully utilized and to have that big playability with that. How many 60-yard touchdowns did we see last year because 2 guys miss a tackle and he's gone to the house?
Well, exactly. As soon as, you got to respect Jalen Waddle and you got to respect the other players on the team, that if a safety pulls off for even a half a second on coverage, it's going to be a over-the-top throw to Tyreek Hill, touchdown. I mean, we saw it in Kansas City. We see it here in Miami. The thing for me is when looking at a guy like this. Before we'll move on to your next guy, who you have it to. Is when you look at Tyreek Hill, there's only a few wide receivers out there that are viable to go for 200 yards in a game, like yardage wise. And it's because his big playability. He doesn't have to rely on volume to get there either. Now, last year, he had 9 catches for 146 in a game. Then another game, he did have 11 for 190. But when you're looking at yardage per reception, he can be up there. I mean, Waddle was 18.1, but he was 14.3, and that's with a couple off weeks. You take out those off weeks, and he's right up there with Waddle. I mean, 7 catches for 143. You go over all these stats. He can hit 200 yards in a game, and that's what the scary thing that he can do. And when you look at Justin Jefferson, he's another one too. 193, 184, 223. And the guy that we're going to talk about now, who's your number 2, did the same thing 2 years ago, and even last year, I believe, when looking at his game logs, he even had a couple games really close up there too. So that's what we're talking about when talking about these top 5 guys. It's scary, the volume that they can put up in both yardage and reception. So your number